and welcome to Eternity Speaks. I'm your host, Reverend Bill Eggleston. I hope everyone has had a great week and is doing well. Today, I'd like to talk about loving your neighbors. Um, we all know what happened 21 years ago today. The whole world wept together. Um, kind of holds a special meaning for me, having been in the fire service. Even though that's you hear a lot about that, you hear about the police officers and the firefighters and everything, but it's not really centered around that. Yes, that was a big important part of it, and that in the tragedy and everything, but it was more than just them that lost people. Uh, we all watched in horror when the towers fell. We clung to our loved ones and held them just a little bit tighter that day. Uh, we called friends and family, no matter where they were, just to hear their voices. We hugged total strangers and just cried together. I remember that day. Uh, I was driving a door to door food delivery truck selling frozen food to my customers. Uh, I didn't sell much that day. But I ran my route as I would have any other Tuesday, and I was greeted with tears at the door. That just about every door that opened, someone was standing there crying, TV going on in the background, and before either of us could even say a word, we just we just hugged. We just stood there and hugged two complete strangers brought together by one tragic event, just standing there holding each other, trying to comfort each other. But yeah, I didn't sell much that day. But instead, I gave of myself. I comforted my customers, my neighbors, my family, and my friends. It was a rough day. It really was. We had the option. I got to my first stop, and the door opened, and I didn't expect it to open because that was one of those places where there was just a freezer and an order. But that day, there was people there. It was a farm. They they had come in from the fields to watch and to kind of be together. I didn't expect anybody to answer the door, and I didn't expect the great big hug from them either because I had never actually met them in person. It had only been a note, some money, and an order is all it ever was. But after that first stop, I turned around and went back to the depot, and I was riding with a friend of mine, and we went back and we told our boss what happened uh, because he hadn't heard anything about it. Uh, he had a television that he pulled out of nowhere. I didn't even know we had it, and hooked it up, and we watched because I hadn't heard anything either until they told me about it. And then he gave us the option that we could go home if we wanted, be with our families, but we knew that that day wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the sales. It wasn't about the product or anything else. We just knew that people were going to need some sense of normalcy that day. So even though we knew we weren't going to sell much, we went out anyway, and we we hugged so many people that day, and we cried together in so many different places that day. That day we were united as one. One tragic event brought everybody together. And at that point, I lived very close to the Canadian border in New York, way, way up there, about 11 miles south of the border. And after that, after that day, uh, all the cars that I saw with Canadian plates all had American flags hanging from their antennas. I even saw uh, one Canadian pickup truck uh, they had a great big American flag on a makeshift flagpole mounted in the back, and they were just driving around town. And it was so nice to see that. Even though it wasn't, it didn't happen on their soil, they were there. They were supportive. They were supporting us, even though we were hundreds of miles away from where it happened. They they were there for us, and it united most of the world that day. We were all one people in that moment. But imagine what the world will be like if it didn't take a tragedy like 9/11 for that to happen. Imagine if we lived that every day, loving and caring and watching out for one another every day. Imagine if we united under God and lived in His words and in His love and in His peace. Please don't wait for a tragedy to spark your patriotism and your love. Talk to your neighbors, call your friends, call your families. Hold those to you that are closest a little tighter. And love now. Don't wait. Don't say, "Well, I'll call them next week, or maybe I'll stop by next month when I'm in that area." Talk to them now. Tomorrow's not promised. Nearly 3,000 people went to bed last night, not knowing that that was their last night with their families. But love each other now. Look out for one another now. At this time, I'd like to turn the show over to Barry and our special guest, St. Simon the Zealot.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
That's one day I think everybody remembers where they were for that morning.
Yeah.
So, I think real sad thing is, it happened a generation ago.
Yeah.
So now we're having children that will have no memory of it being born. So we've got to keep it alive. That's what we got to do.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next week, we're going to have disciple John the Younger. There were two Johns that followed him, and this is going to be the lesser known one, but absolutely not lesser in what he did in spreading the words of God. And today we're going to have St. Simon with us. The messages have been wonderful. So these guys are all the same. They just didn't get the publicity, I guess is the word to describe it.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll be back in a bit.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for believing in God, because I'm sure that the only people that listen to this are people that believe in God. So I want to thank all of you. I want to talk to you today about man's ability to show hatred towards others. Today, you're commemorating an absolutely terrible day in your country's history. On that day, you sadly learned that your country's not invincible. You learned that there are people that hate your country beyond any comprehension. There are still people out there that hate your country. You see, God created the United States to be a pillar of goodness. He created the country to be a nation that stood out among the world, a nation that helped others. Now there are many of your politicians that have changed the track of what the founding fathers wanted your country to be. You see, sadly, things change. Things changed in all the great cultures. You see, God continuously tries to do things that will help humans evolve. But he gives them free will. Free will changes things. If the leaders of any country desire power, desire wealth, have got these incredible egos that they are so special, they will do anything they can to promote their self-endearment. You're seeing it today. Russia, the Russian people are good people. They've just been so abused through the years. We try to help them, we try to guide them. But the leadership of that country always misleads them. They lie to them. These poor people, they never heard. There are people that are middle-aged, advanced, that have never heard the truth. Think about if you have never heard the truth. Think about if you have never studied your founding fathers. Think about if you never heard of God. Those poor people, they don't know what to believe. They can only believe the things that they continuously hear. Now, do you think that can't happen to your country? Well, it can. How do you know what is the truth of what you are hearing? You don't, unless you take the time to learn. And quite often, there's no way you can learn. There are people in power that are keeping the truth away from everyone. If you don't know what the truth is, how do you make decisions? Well, I can answer that. You know what the words of God are, so you can follow him, and that will help you. That'll help you make the right decisions. But what if you do not know God? Then you don't know what to do. There are many people today that don't know God. They're being driven away. People are telling them there's no way God can exist. You don't see him, you don't feel him, you don't hear him. But you see all the results around you that God has created if you take time to look. God gave everyone common sense. You know what's right. You know that if you steal someone, it's not right. If you kill somebody or hurt them, do you think that's right? Look at the brutalities that are taking place needlessly over in Europe. Those people do not know what's right. They are told that they should terrorize others. On 9/11, people wanted to terrorize your country, and they succeeded. Look what you're going through today as a result. Over 20 years later, when you travel, you've got securities you never had before. You worry about your children. The world changed on that day. What would you think it would be like if somebody used a weapon of mass destruction against your country? Everything would change from that day forward, and things would never again be the same, just the same as things were never the same after what happened on 9/11. It is so important today that you tell others about the words of God. The technologies that God has now given you can go for good or it can go for horrible. God has decided to test you by allowing you a rapid advance in technologies. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad, or maybe you just go into the woods and ignore it. Well, there's no ignoring it in the long term anymore. You can be like the proverbial ostrich that sticks its head in the sand, and you can ignore what is going on around you. You can say it's happening to others, but it will never happen to me. But guess what? There will be a time that it happens to you. It is a time of decision. You can make decisions to follow good, or you can make decisions to follow bad. It's always been like that. You see, free will is the great conundrum. You can use it to advance yourself personally, or you can use it to advance your soul. Humans come in when they're born and they have no memories of anything. All must be learned. All must be learned in that individual's own time. Good parents influence children to do good. That doesn't mean they're going to do good, because the free will thing comes into play again. But they have the opportunity to do good. You see, life is a continuous choice. You can go through the left door, you go through the right door, or you can walk straight ahead into the wall. Many people choose to walk into the wall. Oh, yeah, they think they're doing great. They got their yachts, they got their homes, they have all the money they ever need, but they don't have an incarnate life that will last forever. Their time will expire. That is the way God wants it. That's the way it will always be. And there's no way around it. You can fear that time of death. Many people with great money do. They know that they haven't helped others. They know they haven't shown charity. They know that they've taken advantage of others, perhaps had others killed, had others abused. Who cares? I can do what I want. I'm wonderful. I'm rich. But your soul is very poor. A poor soul, when it arrives over here, is not going to enjoy the journey thereafter. Oh, you're not going to burn in a hell. That doesn't exist. That's something the ancients made up. They thought if you feared God, then you would obey him. A master, a strong master, a master that can send you to this fiery place, that can torture you for eternity. That's not God. God is love. You'll never find anywhere in his true words that he spoke of a burning hell. He said, if you follow me and lead a good life, you will join me in heaven. Now, he said it many different ways. He created miracles. The miracles are what brought people to him. Today, people don't understand the miracles. A newborn baby is an incredible miracle. There are many out there that would rather kill that miracle before they ever get to see it. Do you realize how many wonderful lives have been destroyed because people think that it's okay to kill the baby in the womb? You understand that among those millions and millions of babies that were killed, there's probably a doctor that could cure cancer, a future president of the United States, an individual that God sent back. Many individuals that God sent back are killed in the womb. Think about that. It's almost beyond comprehension what humans are capable of doing. Humans are also capable of showing great love and charity, and those wonderful souls will reap the rewards of what they do in life. I had the greatest honor I could ever have had by being chosen to walk the earth with Jesus. I earned that right by serving God many, many lifetimes. I used my common sense in those prior lives. I made my decisions to serve God, even though in many of those lives I did not understand God, but I made a common sense decision to do what was right. Common sense spans the ages. It spans the intergalactic community, it spans much further than you are ever capable of understanding in your human body. It is only when you return to heaven that you will understand the true extent of how common sense has led others. I hope that you have enjoyed and understood this short time that I have with you. I have told you the truth this morning. I've told you the truth of God. I've told you the truth of life. I've told you the truth of what your soul must do to find happiness when it returns to heaven. Heaven's nothing to be feared. God's not to be feared. Heaven's to be loved, looked forward to be anticipated. And God is the most wonderful thing that you will ever conceive of. I hope on this day that you remember what true violence can do. The hatred that led those people to fly those airplanes on that terrible day still exists in your world, and there are many that would use much more powerful weapons than those airplanes. Spread love, spread the truth, spread common sense. It's not that complicated. So don't forget this day. 9/11 was terrible. It was horrible. It was almost indescribable. But there are people out there that can do greater harm. Only love, common sense, electing people to your government that truly believes in you, that truly believes in God. There's many things that you can do. Take the first step personally. Help others. Show charity. And simply love God. That'll work out for you. So thank you for listening. I enjoyed this opportunity to be able to speak again. Tell your friends about these messages. You will save many people from unhappiness, and you'll probably save some souls. Think about that. That ought to bring you the greatest joy that you can ever feel. God is here with you. He is blessing you. He knows that you have that spark of him in your heart, and he knows that many of you are going to follow it. So goodbye. Thank you for listening. I hope that I am invited to return again. Goodbye.
Absolutely
Okay,
invited.
I'm going to say something now.
Yeah, I know.
All right. These guys are incredible. You ought to
Good.
feel the energy from over
Oh, I
here.
do.
Yes. Yeah, but here. All right. John the Younger next week. I know it's going to be another good one. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everyone.
Absolutely.
I'll see you.
Right.
Bye.
Right. Well, there you have it. A great message from Simon the Zealot. Opie doesn't mind being called that. I'm not really sure. I probably should have asked him that. It's very important, like we were saying, to love one another now. You know, don't wait. Don't wait for something to happen before you go outside and you talk to your neighbors, or you call a loved one, or a friend that you haven't spoken to in a long time. Don't wait for that. Take that moment now. Use this day to remember the all the people that we lost, and remember how you felt that day, if you were around, because that not everybody was around then. That's 21 years ago now. Um, Unfortunately, the younger generation will, well, in some ways they're spared because they didn't experience it, but at the same time, uh, they need to understand what everyone else is going through also. Uh, but until next week, love each other, look out for one another, Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I know we say that every week, but if you need it in simpler terms, it's basically, uh, I don't know, don't be a jerk and live a good life. That's another way to put it. If you want to put it in layman's terms. Um, but yeah, look after one another, love one another, and we'll see you again next week when we have John the Younger on. Uh, I'm not overly familiar with him either. Uh, I remember little bits and pieces, but like we were saying, there's so many testimonies there, so many stories that were just lost to history because they just didn't make it in. Hopefully, this is going to be a good time to let them come through and tell us their side, tell us what they feel, give us their messages. We're fortunate to get some of that history back through this. But till next week, uh, take care of one another, love one another, and God bless.